Welcome, Pharaoh fans, and welcome back to another interview. Today, we are talking about one of those topics that always gets me going, always wants me to get involved, and always want me to present this information to the audience because we all go through it at some point in time in our life, especially as men. We have those days that we don't really talk about it, and we gotta have those discussions. Today, I have on the show is Brad. Brad, thanks for coming to the show, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing exceptional. Thank you so much for hosting me.
Hey, not a problem. Thank you for reaching out. Now, just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your background.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I do self-development coaching. I work primarily with men. I do a lot of group coaching. And so we're focusing on self-development, improving our relationships, advancing spiritually, really bridging the gaps and all of the pillars in our lives that are essential. We just usually neglect because we get too busy with work, or I'm trying to make money, or I'm trying to do this, that we kind of forget that there's inner work to be done. There's things to be learned, experimented with, and a lot of unlearning in the process as well as of some of the past conditionings, bad experiences that we've gone through that have created negative programming in our mind. So my job is to really help you kind of rewire your brain, create the best version of yourself, whatever that means for you. I help you get there.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. Now, when you're talking to these men, what are some of the reasons that you hear for why they're coming to you for this coaching?
I think more than ever, men are very lost. And by lost, I mean in almost every single aspect of life. It's, I feel like I can't approach women. I feel like I can't have conversations. I can't build meaningful relationships. Some guys are stuck in the hookup culture cycle and they feel like they don't have the ability to form connections with people. I don't know what to do, or I work a job that I don't like. I don't make the money I want. I don't know. I'm not really passionate about anything. What else do I do? And so we really go in there and identify, hey, what's everything that led you up to this point? And what part of you actually is so comfortable in that situation that you sometimes, because a lot of the answers to our lives are in front of us or already within us, we just kind of have these blinders on. We're a little bit unconscious to why things are actually happening. And then we, of course, blame the world. We blame our parents. We blame our ex-girlfriend, whoever it is. And it's like, oh, it's their fault. It's the world's fault as to why I'm not where I want to be. Whereas, of course, there's negative things that happen to all of us that were out of our control, most definitely, and affect us in a negative light, leave us, with some limiting beliefs, some may even argue trauma, depending on the level of the negative experience was. But at a certain point, it gets to a level in which we are unconsciously choosing to continue to live out this life that is not satisfying us. And so I think the beginning steps for these is what I do with a lot of my clientele is asking ourselves the deeper questions. Why am I at where I'm at? What am I doing to contribute to what's occurring in my life? Because, of course, like I was mentioning before, we want to outsource the blame because then we don't have to take accountability. Then nothing is our fault. And so I think the first piece is really identifying where we're at and what we actually did to get there. And of course, the steps from there to start to build a life for yourself and find your passion, or, build a skill set around it, build a business around it, start to be a little bit more confrontational in your relationship and dating experiences. How to be more confrontational with yourself. Stop making promises to yourself that you continue to not keep. And so we just dissect we dissect the inner workings of our mind, what we're doing, what we're not doing, what we should keep doing, what we should really work on. And then from there, realize it's all an individual basis. But a lot of men very lost in really just every single aspect of life because we don't really have any positive role models anymore. There's the self-development space online, which in the YouTube space, which is great. It gives both of us a platform to do so. But some of the bigger creators, some of the advice that they're giving is a little bit, it's unorthodox, which in most cases, unorthodox advice is good. But in this case, it kind of leaves men stranded and thinking that they're benefiting themselves. For example, there's some big podcasters out there who are saying all women are X, Y, and Z. All women will cheat on you, so on and so forth. And then as a 14, 15, 16-year-old guy, when you start to get on YouTube and kind of, I want to get into self-development, make my life better, you stumble upon these ideas, you internalize them before you've actually had any in-person experiences with women, and now you're lost, and you're just going throughout the world thinking every woman and everybody's against you, not understanding that if you're with the right woman, she builds up absolutely everything in your life if you lead her to do so.
You caught me at the first word that you said. Man are lost. That is a heavy word, because you're absolutely right. There aren't many role models out here that men can actually look up to, especially in their lives, right? And when you start looking at these YouTube platforms, you have platforms and you have these YouTubers that, whether they're men or women, that are generalizing a lot of women and generalizing a lot of men. And then you have these different parties looking at this information, maybe it's 17, 18, whatever, whatever age that YouTube deemed you as an adult to look at this stuff. And you're looking at the information and you're bringing all this stuff in. And then as you go through life and start to experience, you start to feel like these generalizations are real. So you're right. Men are lost. I spent a part of my time lost as well, not knowing, how to approach women, how to have conversation with them, and be flirty and stuff like that. Like, look, I'm not the flirtatious type. I just go to just blanket it straight up. Hey, how you doing? What's your name? Can I talk to you? You single? Like, I'm not about to come in here and tell a joke. Knock, knock. You know who's there? I'm not telling you no joke. Trying to get you to laugh and like there's a certain level of decorum when you're approaching someone and you want to have conversation, but at the same time, learning how to get past those roadblocks, like the attitude, the mannerism, showing that you're not a threat. You just want to have conversation when you want to just talk, because some people's body language is just off-putting to where you can't approach them to have a conversation. How can you get around that? Or a really tricky one, talking to somebody and they're with a group of women and trying to penetrate to talk to that one person, but it's always that one person in the group or a few people in the group that's going to stop you. How do you bypass all of that? What is the strategy? What is the conversation? As so far as work, how do you ask for a raise, or how do you ask? Can you take over and be lead on a project? And have a bona fide idea and put that out there, and be courageous with it, be confident with it. Being able to take those risks and be able to accept rejection, knowing that a rejection is not failure, but understanding that rejection is just growth to learn from what you did wrong, so you can go back the next time and ask for it, and you can ask for it on a little bit more solidified, a little bit more confidence, a little bit more with a solid plan. But if you don't have the guidance to be able to do that, then you're absolutely right. You would be lost. How do you walk in with confidence? How do you walk in with your shoulders straight and not come off as arrogant? So I commend you on what you're doing, because there's a lot to unpack there.
100%. No, I appreciate all the wisdom you just shared as well. That confidence and courage piece is absolutely essential. And I think to kind of dissect and answer some of those kind of general questions that you were throwing in there, how do you start to do these things? How do you ask for the raise? How do you approach a group of women, so on and so forth? They're very intricate things, but they're also simple. So my girlfriend that most beautifully fulfilling relationship I've ever had in my entire life. I went up to her when she was in a coffee shop. I was in a coffee shop. She was with about 5 of her friends. And I genuinely was very anxious to go up to her. So a lot of guys think, well, I have to just get over the anxiety and then I can go up to her and then I can have conversations and I can put myself out there. Then I can be confident. And what I've realized is that, look, there's going to be certain days where you're in just this certain type of mood. You're in that flow and you can effortlessly go up to somebody.
Right.
9 times out of 10, you're going to feel a little bit of anxiety going up to a human being you've never had a conversation before. You don't know how they're going to react. It's very unpredictable. So anyway, I actually, in that coffee shop, sat in my head for about 15 minutes before going up to her. And so, should I go up to her? It's like 10 a.m. It's kind of early. I'm leaving in a few minutes. All these excuses for myself. Then anyway, I throw out the food I was eating and I walked past her table. And on the way back was then, of course, the exit. And I was like, I'm walking past her table. I got to go up to her. So anyway, I walk up to the table. And so here's definitely the approach with the group is a lot of men make the mistake of approaching one woman when there's 3, 4, 6, 10 girls in the group, and they ignore everyone else, pretend like they don't exist. Include everybody, then you single out the person you want. So how that looked for me was, it was at like 10 a.m. They're at a coffee shop. It's not like it's a nightlife scenario. We can kind of, act a little bit goofy and, you can still get your way. So I said something, I don't remember the exact words I said, along the lines of, hey guys, I don't want to interrupt your kind of coffee date, but and then I addressed everybody, and then I turn over to my now girlfriend and say, but I thought you were really cute, so I wanted to come up and talk to you, right? And so then after I asked her for her number. Again, like you, I don't do the quirky jokes and try and, slide in there. It's like, I'm just going to tell you that I desire you, and let's see if that's reciprocated. So anyway, I asked her if I could get her number. She's like, sure. So I give her my phone, and she's putting her number in my phone. And as she's doing that, I then turn to the rest of the table, and I start to introduce myself to all of her friends. And I literally went person by person. Hey, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name? And then we had just a kind of group discussion, like, oh, what do you do for work? Are you in school? So on and so forth. Oh my God, I dropped out of university. I run businesses, so on and so forth. And then I turn back to her and get my phone back. And then I'm like, enjoy the rest of your day, guys. I'm sure I'll see you guys again. And then I left. And then I went out on a date with my girl, and that was history. But me and my girlfriend have had many conversations about this. And one of the things in particular that she said was that she really loved that I addressed everybody as a whole. And she really loved that as she was putting her number in my phone, I wasn't just like staring at her while she's putting it in there. She's like, I engaged with her friends. I showed that I wanted to build something there, right? And so she could tell that there was some level of authentic peace to me. And then, of course, when we went on a date, she could fully soak into that because it's just us having a conversation together. Right. But so that's definitely one of the tactics to really in the group setting. And like you said, there's certain scenarios where there's going to be one of the friends that's going to be like, oh, you don't talk to her. Like, oh, she doesn't want to talk to you, whatever. And it's like in those scenarios, you want to see the reaction to the girl that you actually want and you're talking to. What is her reaction to her friend saying that? Because I've seen quite a few of the pickup videos online where so the girl actually then starts fighting her friend. It's like, why are you saying this? Like, he's just having a conversation with me. Like, shut up, get out of here. And then some girls will kind of let it go and let it slide. Those are more, but it's your job as a man to take the lead here. Like, stand your ground. And the girl's like, oh, she doesn't want your number. And you would say something like, she hasn't told me that. Right? You keep your calm, you keep your cool. You don't go to the fence and you're at the point where you're like, oh, well, she didn't say that, and you start to get emotional about it, because then that's a huge turnoff, right? You have to stand your ground, be very stoic about it. And when you're soaking into your authenticity and you know your value as an individual, if somebody says that to you, that's okay. That's their opinion. They're just reflecting back to you how they're experiencing their internal world, and that's okay. Let them be who they want to be. But yeah, there's some very deep questions, and the courage piece, because like I was mentioning before, it's not that the anxiety isn't there when you're approaching people you don't know. It's being anxious and deciding to take the action anyway. That's what builds confidence. It's not self-affirmations, I love myself over and over again. It's doing the uncomfortable task. And look, you can start small. If you're the most anxious guy in the book, and you're like, dude, I can't go up to a girl and ask her for a number, don't ask her number. Ask her how her day is going and walk away. Just say one sentence and move on with your day. And you'll kind of see over a very short period of time, people aren't as scary as you think they are. And you don't even have to start with a girl. Start with a guy in the fast food line that you're standing at. Hey, man, how's your day going today? It's like, oh, man, I'm doing good. Or, he's like, today's kind of crappy. And then you have a conversation about it. It's like, oh, life is not that bad. And people actually do want, because you're breaking the narrative. You're breaking the norm. Most people want to talk to people, but they're afraid to do so because it's like, I'm not supposed to talk to people now. I gotta get in line. I gotta check out. I gotta buy this and then move on with my day, go back to work. Oh, they don't want to talk to me. It's like, says who? And so when you put yourself out there, you get everything you've ever wanted. So anyway, most beautiful relationship I've ever been in as a result of me getting out of my comfort zone. There was this time at the gym where I saw this guy with a shirt that said $1 billion creator. So I think to myself, this guy probably makes some sort of content online. He probably does something of that nature, an entrepreneur maybe. So I go up to him, and it turns out he has 400,000 followers. He has a huge real estate account. And then it's like, all right, new connection, right? And so it's like when you put yourself out there, there's so many opportunities that are always right in front of all of our faces. We just refuse to see that they're there because we're so closed down. It's, oh, I don't have the confidence yet. Oh, I don't have the skill set yet. I'm not good enough yet. It's like, says who? You're just saying that to yourself. So, kind of taking these actions is, and addressing these things is really the best way to heal these parts of yourself, you could argue.
And I can agree. And I want to add on to that. If you're not an anxious person when you're going to do something, I would definitely say that something is wrong with you. Now, and this is why I say that. I do some hosting every now and then, and I get anxious every time I get on a microphone. And the reason why I get anxious is because I'm thinking about what people are going to say, what people are going to think, how they're going to react to the jokes, how they're going to react to the commentary every time. But then I go back into myself. I say, you know what? It's good to feel anxious because I know that once I go out there, I'm gonna want to be I want to be perfect. I want to be perfection. I also say that because if you decide to get outside your comfort zone and talk to somebody and realize that people aren't as scary as they say they are, you'll be amazed at how quick you get over it. It's almost instantaneous. I was nervous to talk to a young lady, and I was like, you know what? I just got to talk to her. I don't even care. I'm just got to talk to her. And I was just like, hey, how you doing? I just wanted to know if you were single. Can I talk to you? I think you're attractive. She said no. she said no. But had I not asked, I would have always been in my head wondering, well, what would have happened if I did? What would have happened if I tried? What would have happened if I said something? And then sometimes a decision comes out to a split second. And once you do it, you might as well just go all the way through with it and don't even think about it from there. And as you said, there are times where we're just not in the mood. And it's that one time we're in the mood, but there's nobody around. At least that's my experience. Like, I be in the mood and there's nobody around. But then when I'm not in the mood and I'm just on business, I'm focused and everything, that's when all of them show up and I'm like, hey, but I gotta go. I got a meeting I gotta get to. Like, do I spare 5 minutes or do I run to this meeting really quick? Like, what's the responsibility at that point? And it's a split second decision sometimes for just a 3 to 5 minute conversation to get a number. Like, you gotta jump for what you want. You have to. And if you don't jump for what you want, then you'll never experience rejection. You'll never gain the experience to know how to receive and how to receive that rejection, or you want to how to approach a group of women. Like, I like the way you did it, Brett. I like that. That's great. I think that's the best way to do it. But for everybody else, it's like if you never do it, and you never experience it, then how would you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can go based on somebody else's experience, but until you put yourself in that same predicament, because everybody reacts differently. Because the ladies could have been like, they could just not interacted with you whatsoever. You were like, hey, I'm Brad, and talking to them, they probably just stare and look at you like, and not say anything. So, but that's one way. That's just one way to look at it. So let me ask you this. And this kind of all falls into our conversation for a little bit. In a world where we're constantly constantly being told to fix ourselves, how do we begin integrating our insecurities instead of running away from them?
That's an exceptional question. We first need to really address where they came from. Sometimes it came from your parents. Sometimes it came from your childhood, from your first grade teacher, from your ex-girlfriend. And, we often then, of course, like I was mentioning before, start to then blame somebody else for, and then the biggest culture we have now is blaming other people. When we're the insecure ones, we say, oh, they're just insecure. It's, oh, he doesn't want to let me go out. Oh, he's insecure. He doesn't want to let me, go hang out with other guys. He's insecure. So on and so forth. The biggest component is in your question of not running away from it. You run towards it by you face the parts of yourself by having conversations with people about it. On my first day with my girlfriend, I don't remember exactly what the point was. It was a very quick one, but I actually told her something I was insecure about. It's like, oh, like sometimes I feel blah, blah, blah. And the biggest thing is not making it a big deal, especially but there's certain insecurities that can only be integrated when you're in relationships. Other insecurities can be integrated when you're not. It depends where it lies. And also understanding that there are certain ones that can be overcome fully and you fully transcend them. And there's other ones where it's never going away. You just have to find a way to manage it and get it into a place in which you acknowledge what it's there. So when you feel insecure about something, what are the thoughts that are coming up? What would I usually do or not do as a result of experiencing this? And then it either calls for actually in reality doing the opposite or calls for, why do I feel so angry? What's the trigger point here? And so when somebody does something that makes you feel something, the integration process is asking yourself, why am I experiencing this? How is it affecting my reality? Sometimes on a day-to-day basis. Why do I feel so angry all the time? And sometimes the first answer that you uncover, it's deeper than that. So you may find, oh, it's just because I'm angry all the time. Well, the anger stems from somewhere. Oh, it's just because someone did me wrong, kind of 5 days ago, and it hasn't left my mind. I just feel so angry. And then you realize that the root of it is that your insecurity lies in your ability to confront people about things you're dissatisfied with them doing to you. And so the manifestation of this was just in that context of that situation from 5 days ago, when really it's the sum total of your life. You let people walk all over you. You're a people pleaser. And that's where it really stems from. And then, of course, that'll usually stem from childhood, somebody making you feel like you're not good enough. And then now you have to prove yourself to everybody. I had one of my clients yesterday talk about how it's like in work, he never feels like he's doing enough. And he's always trying to show people that he's a hard worker. I'm like, it's not about, and he's always trying to tell them, like, I can do this. I can work hard for you. I can, do this. And I'm like, it's not about telling them it. It's just about simply being in your own presence and doing the actions. And the work speaks for itself.
Right.
And so in terms of relationships or insecurities and integrating them in relationships, very uncomfortable conversation or concept and philosophy. Especially as a man, we go into the insecurity conversation with, let me distract myself from this. Well, let me not experience it, let alone let my girlfriend or my wife know that I'm experiencing this, because then she's going to leave me. She's not going to think I'm a man. She's going to think I'm too emotional, whatever the case is. The frame of how you present these things is the most important piece. A confident man can express any amount of insecurity that he has to his woman, and she views him no less of a man. Because he's not sitting there crying about it. Oh, babe, I can't deal with this anymore. Work is so difficult. I don't know if I'm going to get by. I can't deal with this anymore. It's like, no, hey, babe, I've been feeling kind of off recently, like a little angrier than usual. So if you kind of notice that that's kind of coming up within me, could you let me know? And so then you're inviting her to help you integrate that insecurity, which is holding the space for each other and understanding where you're both at and what you can do to help each other. And so it sometimes comes down to, oh, well, when I do this, it makes you feel insecure. There's two options there. Depending on what she or he is doing, maybe they should simply stop doing it. Maybe it's something that's not uncalled for. Or because they're doing that thing, it reminds the person who has the insecurity of a situation of the past or a person of the past or anything that was happened before. And then from there, you get stuck and you shut down. It's like, oh, I can't talk about this anymore. Being able to hold the space, giving people the opportunity to hold the space for you is very important. And of course, well, like I mentioned before, the frame in presenting these things is very important. You express them confidently. This is just what I'm going through right now. This is what I'm experiencing. And it gives your woman, it gives your man an opportunity to hold the space for you. And look, it looks very different for men and women. Women, societally and culturally speaking, are it's a lot more socially okay for them to express their insecurities. For example, if your girlfriend comes to you and says randomly, like, do you still love me? Do you hate me? So on and so forth. It's normal for a woman to say that by society's standards, right? And we don't blink an eye about it. It's like, okay, she's just feeling that. I'll give her the reassurance, so on and so forth. God forbid a guy came to his girlfriend and said, do you still love me, babe? Babe, do you hate me? It's like, that's like, no, we can't do that. And that being said, I'm not advising anyone to do that. In fact, I think men should never, ever say that to their woman. But again, it's okay to, if you have the thoughts or the feeling of, does she still love me? Confronting that. But it comes as a situational basis. This needs to be grounded in something, or else it's just delusion, right? And that's often what insecurity is. It's not grounded in anything real. And so it's like, well, I'm afraid they're going to go cheat on me. I'm afraid they're going to do X, Y, and Z. And they've showed no signs of doing that. But your ex-girlfriend did. So now you're taking all of those things from her and projecting them onto the person you're with now. And that's the insecurity creating itself. So the healing process of it is communicating what you're experiencing and allowing yourself to experience it when it comes up. And seeing how you react to the insecurity when it comes up. When you feel angry, when you feel sad, when you feel a little bit depressed about it, when you feel anxious, when you feel confused, when you feel lost. Understanding why it's coming up and giving somebody else an opportunity that's close to you, of course, to be able to have the conversation with you around it. Sometimes it calls for you just doing that reflection by yourself and you coming to terms with what you're experiencing. And the most important piece here to integrate this is to not shame yourself for experiencing the insecurity, because it's there for a reason. Anything you feel is simply your body just letting you know, hey, this is what's going on right now. And for you to reject that is one of the worst things we could possibly do. And so I think it's largely speaking, taking the insecurity when it comes up, and if the insecurity is telling you to run, stay instead and confront it. And what that looks like is having a conversation. It's asking yourself the deep questions. It's taking the action that's the opposite of what your brain is telling you to do, right? And this is difficult to unpack because there's the logic in play. There's also the emotional experience you're having. You have to integrate both of those to really manage the insecurity with whatever it is. But yeah, there's also fundamental insecurities in which aren't going to go away. And actually, there's certain components of insecurities, you could argue, that are healthy for relationships. For example, there's a healthy level of possessiveness for you to have over your partner, for you to spend a significant amount of time with them, for you to want to be with them, for you to want to build with them, and to have them to yourself per se. Now, when the insecurity...
Hold on. Hold on. Now, we gonna have to run that one back because, and the reason why I say that, so you said that there is a healthy level of possession over your partner. That because, and the reason why I say this is because some things in society will make people believe that in certain relationships, any type of possession is considered unhealthy. It's, you like to use the word toxic. So I'm gonna let you explain it, but I had to jump in because I had to make sure I heard it correctly. So farewell fans. So listen, there is a healthy way of having possession of your partner. I'm gonna let you cook, but I had to jump in. Like, wait, hold on, we can't just slap past that one right there. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So fundamentally, if we're talking about relationships with men and women, there's a deep feminine desire to be led, to be, in fact, in even what some would argue a toxic way, to be controlled. Now, I don't take that, and I have to break this down, right? It's not telling your girlfriend, telling your wife, telling your partner that they can't go out, and hang out with their friends. They can only spend 24/7 with you, because that is the controlling aspect, the possessiveness. That is what people would label as toxic, right? Because now you're not a free individual anymore. But here's the thing. People like to do single people activities when they're in a relationship, when you're building something that you claim is authentic and real, yet you're going to the club every weekend and dancing with your friends when there's only guys around that want to sleep with you, but you're just going to pretend that that's not happening. And so it's really protecting the integrity of your relationship. And so when your man says, hey, I don't want you to go out there, or I'd prefer if you don't, or hey, at least just communicating, this is how I'm feeling about this. I don't want you to do it. You're a free person. Do whatever you want. That then allows her to think and assess, do I want to do this thing? Is it compromising the integrity of our relationship? Or is he just insecure? Because yes, there are insecure men that are in the toxic realm where it's like, yeah, you can't go here. I need your location 24/7. Got to let me know 24/7. You're not on your own, right? That is not, because that's the insecurity creating itself in a bad way. So the healthy way would look like communicating what you're experiencing and for your partner to be receptive to that, and for you guys to establish something that works for both of you. Of, okay, well, maybe you are going to go out, but you're going to communicate with me in these certain points, or you are going to go and do this thing, and I'm going to work through the insecurity and thing that I'm experiencing. But the possessiveness of, there's a deep feminine desire for women to be led, and sometimes that comes in the form of being told what to do. Now, this is the darker sides of human nature that people don't like to experience or publicly talk about, because it goes against what society is promoting, especially on the women's side, which is strong, independent woman. I don't need a man. I don't want to be led. I want my own money, so on and so forth. For example, a woman having her own money, a woman being able to lead herself are exceptional abilities that she needs to have, especially if you're in a conscious, intellectual relationship where you guys are both intelligent people. She needs to be able to do those things, right? It's not you just doing, telling her what to do. But right. There is so I'll give you an example. My girlfriend is very, by society's standards, independent. She is very hard worker. She's very ambitious, and I love these things about her. But when she's with me and we're going out to dinner and we're at certain places, she turns her brain off. She allows me to lead her. Right. And so a lot of women in the modern day say, well, that's possessive. It's like she's turning her brain off, and that's not going to be. Well, here's the thing. I allow her to feel safe. And so she's able to do those things. And that's what every woman deeply down desires. The problem is that the women that say that they don't want that are the ones that have only been hurt by men and don't know what it's like to be with a man who leads them in a healthy manner. And look, sometimes and that's the beauty of relationships, is it's showing your partner that they're wrong sometimes. It's showing them that, hey, you want to go and do this thing? Maybe you shouldn't do that. And it allows them to question. And the same thing goes for the woman to the man. For a man to say, I want to go out and do this thing. Or, I believe this thing about the world. And she challenges him and shows him that he's wrong and he can be better, right? These are the points of relationships to build. And so if you're going into a relationship with I'm just going to be by myself, I can't attach to them too much, they can't have any possession or hold over me, you're missing out on love, because love is deeply extending yourself fully to somebody. And in a sense, letting yourself fall into their arms and fall to your knees when things are getting too difficult. And this is particularly difficult for everybody in the modern world, and especially for men, to say, because nobody ever wants to use the word need, right? It's like, sometimes I just need my girl to do X, Y, and Z and help me out with this. It's no, I don't need her. She just kind of helps me out sometimes. I'm honest with my girlfriend. I say, once in a blue moon, I need you. Well, in the realms of, life gets a little bit difficult. I get a little bit stressed out, so on and so forth. You hold the space for me. You get me back on my feet. You're that rock for me, and I'm that for you. And most relationships don't have that basis, because the foundational basis of most people's relationships is fear. I feel like they're going to cheat on me. I got to stab them before they stab me first. And I got to, always got to watch in my back. I got to make sure I have their location. I got to know what they're doing at all times. And you have so much insecurity infested in your relationship that there's no foundational keys for anything successful and healthy. Where it becomes healthy is understanding that you both have similar insecurities and being able to have conversations around them. For example, what human being has never thought about their relationship? Oh, like, what if they cheat on me? Even if you're in the healthiest relationship possible, once in a blue moon, the thought will cross your mind. What do you do with that thought? Do you pretend that it doesn't exist? Or do you allow yourself to experience it, see if there's actually something in reality that's leading you to have that, or it's just an insecurity that's coming up? And, what you can do is, have me and my girlfriend have conversations about our insecurities all the time. This is how I'm feeling. This is how I'm experiencing this. If you don't do that, you're missing out on the connective piece of your partnership, right? Because if you're going to build a life together with somebody, you need to let them in on everything. And men think that nowadays, because you have to be a man, because you have to be stoic, because you can't show your emotions, what you're really doing is saying, I need to hide parts of myself, because if she finds out this about me, she'll leave. What's that rooted in? Insecurity, right? And so we need to have conversations with our partners about what we're experiencing, and also do a level of reflection on our own time to heal these, to not get to the point where you're letting the insecurity destroy yourself. So anyway, that possessiveness is, and we could also take it to, I don't know how explicit you get on the show, but you can also take it to the sexual context, which gets a little bit more darker, on the darker side of human nature and the sexual experience. But, we don't necessarily need to touch on that in its entirety. But there's very dark components of our nature. For example, there's parts of us that are very caring. As a human being, there's parts of us that are very loving. There's parts of us that are very light, that we like to let go of things and let things flow. And there's the part of human nature that's very greedy, that's very selfish, that wants everything to ourselves. And integrating this, because we're all, in part, you could say, insecure about that. There's a natural possession that we all have over our partners. That's why you don't want them. That's why we worry about someone cheating on us, right? Because if you're going to be with somebody else, well, that would mean then there's something not good enough about me, and you need to go somewhere else to fill your needs. And then what that's really shining a light on is how we have to look back at ourselves and analyze exactly where that came from. And in that case, it's our nature. I mean, to build a family, you want to know that somebody's going to be there for you. And then when you have kids, that they're going to be there for your kid, right? And that's why the sexual relationships with men and women are a little bit different, and why things are getting very dangerous, because as more hookup culture becomes more and more popular, people are sleeping with people more and more often without any deep connection. And, the consequences of sleeping with somebody you don't know extensively can be very high. And we're not just talking about diseases, stuff like that. It's like having a child. And that's why women have to be a lot more careful with, obviously, who they give themselves sexual access to. And more women now are like, who cares about it? Like, oh yeah, I'll sleep with the guy on the first night, so on and so forth. And it's getting these are things in which these are insecurities creating themselves. It's like, we have a culture now where it's like, I'm going to sleep with them first, then I'm going to get to know them. It's so backwards, right? Because you're forming an attachment to someone and a possession over them, but you don't even know if you actually like the individual. And then you you have a level of infatuation for someone that isn't actually real or rooted in anything grounded. And so, yeah, just the fundamental of the possession. Everybody wants to be, that's why you want a partnership and you want to get married, or you want to be with someone for the rest of your life. You want them to have possession over you and only you. You don't want somebody else in the equation. That's why we get insecure about these things. I don't want a third person in our relationship. I don't want you to look at so and so and think they're attractive, because we want people to ourselves. And obviously everyone said, well, that's an insecurity thing. That's why there's so many more open relationships nowadays. Well, it's fine that I can have 3 partners and, one of them meets my financial needs, the other one meets my sexual needs, the other one meets my emotional needs. You're just, compartmentalizing all of your relationships, and your relationship with yourself is very poor. That's why you have commitment issues. That's why you can't form deep connections with people. That's why you intellectualize everything and you can't feel anything anymore, and you're numb to life. That's why you need multiple people to fill the gaping hole inside of you. And so, look, I think there's exceptions in all areas of life, but open relationships 99% of the time are very toxic. And anybody who is truly desiring one, you got to really assess your inner reality, because it's not doing very well.
Now they make the open relationships, the polyamorous relationship, look really good on social media. It's really good on social media. It looks like something I would love to be in. Everybody's getting along, and they get to go out on these huge extravagant dates and everything. They're bringing in all kind of money. It looks good. It looks nice. But you're absolutely right. Behind the scenes, what you don't see on social media, you see infighting. You see a lot of things. I didn't think about a person compartmentalizing
it.
I get tongue tied. That is sectioning off parts of themselves in different areas of their relationship, because this one person brings in a certain aspect, this person brings in a certain aspect, this person brings in a certain aspect, because they can't find it all in one person. And they know that if they had it in one person, would that be fulfilling enough to last? I was recently watching, I do reaction videos to Pop the Balloon series, and this one young lady had made a statement that was kind of profound. She said that she believed in polyamorous, and the only reason why she believed in it, from what I understood, was that because she was dating a person that was consistently cheating. And I'm guessing, and what I perceived from it was that in order for her to believe that she's going to keep a good man, is to allow him to openly cheat as long as she's there, and she'll be able to keep that man. Now, I found that to be a crazy statement, because whether he cheat next to you or he cheat behind your back is not really going to make a difference, because if he chooses to go with this young lady, he's going to choose to go with the young lady and put you to the side. So if you don't have enough self-worth not to engage in that, I mean, if you wanted to do it because you just wanted to do it, is one thing. But to say that you want to do it to prevent a person from cheating by having the open relationship and accepting polyamorous, I don't think that's going to solve the problem. Because the problem, as the conversation that we're having now, it starts with that individual. Is that individual that is having the problem, that has the insecurity, that does not have the mental capacity to say, you know what, I desire you and only you, and not everybody to satisfy all my needs. And let's be quite honest, one person is not going to have everything, because that's just not how the world is built. They're going to have some things, but not all things. And that's kind of where men and women, with their requirements for their specific partner, kind of differ. Where men are a little bit more simplistic in what they want and what they're looking for, and women have this long checklist that every man has to check off, and they can't find that 1% that they're looking for.
Yeah, that's a really interesting conversation, because it really depends on, obviously, the individual and their subjective experience. But yeah, there's a lot of women that are saying, he needs to meet all these requirements. But here's the interesting thing. is you see this in interviews, you see this on the street in the nightlife scene, you see this on camera. And the reason for that is because that's what if they had to pick everything, then that's what they would choose, or at least what they think. But what they really want is they don't want necessarily the guy with money. They want the guy with ambition, because that creates money. They want the guy who's able to respect people, because what does that reveal about his ability to be charismatic and be grounded as an individual? It's these things that women really care about. They just don't know it. And so they just go on camera and they're like, oh, he needs to be 6 feet tall. He's got to be X, Y, and Z. And it's like, these things are to be addressed, and there's truth to some of them. But they're oftentimes, the same women that are saying he needs to fill this long checklist. If you look at all of her past sexual experience, if you look at all of her past relationships, none of the men that she has been with possess any of those things, right? And so she's living in absolute delusion. And she's also probably overhyping herself and the value that she provides in a relationship, which is usually nothing. And she's just expecting things. And same goes for men. Like, you don't expect people to give you things and be a person that you're not already. Now, I wanted to touch on a little bit of what you said, because maybe we disagree on this, or maybe I just interpret it differently than you were presenting it.
Okay,
Of the realm of, somebody won't meet. There's not a single person that meets all of your needs. I think that there is a person that meets all of your needs.
okay.
You don't always see it completely up front. And it takes integrating those and allowing somebody to unfold and discover parts of themselves throughout the relationship that allow you to do that. That being said, there are most definitely most people, and like most people in this reality aren't right for you. And most people you meet, quite to your point, will not be able to meet your needs. So don't pretend that they're going to. But there is that individual out there that can do all of those things for you. Now, again, actually, kind of soaking into what you were saying a little bit more, when we talk about needs, we're talking about sexual needs, we're talking about emotional needs, we're talking about the way you view the world, we're talking about belief systems. Those, in terms of meeting your needs, or your desires, or what you think you want, they need to view all of these things exactly the same way. Yeah, you're never going to find that. You're never going to find someone exactly like you. But to find somebody that's right for you is most definitely possible, and I don't think you were disagreeing on that point.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think the whole component of all these things is we really need to address, because most people's standards now, they're not like actually rooted in anything foundational. Like, it's like, okay, we have an understanding based on science and biology that if a woman had to choose a guy that was 6 foot versus 5'4", she would on paper choose the guy that's 6 foot, right? But there's many other components of the guy that might be 5'4" that outweigh that guy's height, and so she's going to choose him instead, right? And so I'll give you an example. I'm 5'6" myself. Now,
Okay.
the thing is, you hear mostly online, like, women aren't going to find you attractive, you're hopeless, it's like there's no way you're going to find people, like, women aren't going to find you attractive.
Right.
And so what you realize is that, you know what? I've understood in my past experience that there's going to be certain women that refuse to look in my direction because of my height. That's a fact of reality. But I'm not going to sulk on that. And instead, I'm going to develop all the other parts of myself that put myself ahead of all the other people. Because here's what a lot of the guys that soak into that reality that is true of, like, hey, women would prefer a guy that's taller. They soak into that way too much. And what that ends up being is, oh, well, I'm tall, so I can just get girls. Getting girls and getting the girl you want are two very different things, and conversations and actions and a lifestyle to live, right? And so the guy who's 6'4" may be like, oh, I'm tall, so girls like me. You do no self-development. You're dumb as rocks, to be completely plain and honest. And that's, again, not me generalizing saying every guy that's 6'4" is dumb. It's just that there's certain individuals that use these biological markers that are true. They have truth to them, but they use that as the end all be all, and then they don't develop these things. And there's also, of course, all flaws, insufficiencies we all have, and biological things we can't control that we can just soak on and say, well, this isn't going to work. I've never had a problem with women in my life. I haven't. Have I had women that rejected me because of my height and so on and so forth? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But the people that are right for you, they see past those things. And so what I establish for myself is the woman that I want for myself, the woman I want long-term, potential life partner. I've done this thought experiment. And I thought to myself, my long-term partner, this is how a scenario would go. If let's say we're 10 years from now, we're at a party and we're talking to a bunch of people, and some guy goes up to her and says, oh, you're with him? Like, he's he's not that tall. Like, you making a joke, like, oh, he could be, you deserve a guy that's better. Some bullshit like that. My expectation for her reaction would be something like, you know what? If I had to choose for Brad to be a few inches taller, probably would choose that. but because he's charismatic, because he's ambitious, because his list goes on. That stuff doesn't matter to me, right? And so that's what men oftentimes don't realize is they take those things that women list off as of face value of I can only accept a man if he's this, and they realize, oh, I'm not that, so I'm never going to get any woman in my life. It's not the truth. Also, the women that are saying that are not the women that you want. They're not the women that anybody wants. That's why they're on camera talking about these things and trying to get a man's attention to give her those things, because she's never gotten them and probably never will, because she doesn't deserve them, because she's crying on the internet that she needs these things, right? And so we really need to address the roots of why do I even feel like I have these standards for myself. It's it's very interesting, the philosophies that we've developed in our lives and how they often contribute to the downfall of our relationships. And that's when I realized of, there's a certain level of foundational bases that you need in your relationships. And so if your partner or potential prospect for a partner doesn't meet those requirements, then yeah, throw them in the garbage. So that being said, if you are a woman and you say, I'm only going to date a guy that's 6'4", that's fine. There's nothing wrong with you soaking into that. Just know that there's a very small section of the population that is that. There's also a small percentage of the population that is 6'4" and meets all of your other requirements. So sometimes you got to kind of bring yourself back to reality a little bit. You got to kind of soak into how you're probably not even good enough for the guy that you think you are. And then for men, you haven't developed the confidence to attract the woman that you actually want. You just think you deserve it because I'm me and I'm unique, but you haven't done anything in your life to prove to yourself that you're unique, because you don't need to prove to other people of who you are. You just have to embody it, and people see that consciously or they don't, and whatever they see or don't see is okay. But it's the most important piece is developing these aspects of yourself and understanding that some of your standards aren't connected to reality, and they're also not even exactly what you want, right? And so sometimes it's, well, a girl needs to do X, Y, and Z for me, and then you realize you don't care about that at all. But of course, it takes time, effort, and energy, and reflection and accountability to look at these things within ourselves and realize that, oh, I don't actually need this thing. I'm just convincing myself that I do. And when I got into the relationship with my girlfriend now, on our first date, she told me that she likes sports. And I haven't watched sports in years because I kind of developed the philosophy. I'm like, sports are a waste of time. I'm not going to take time to watch these things. And so in my mind, before I even went on a date with her, I was like, I don't want a girl who's into sports. That's boring. It's too surface level. And then and here's the other thing. I was honest with her about it on the first date. And I was like, oh, like sports? Like, oh, I'm not really into it, so on and so forth. And then what did I realize? After getting to know her as an individual, her personality, who she is, the components of her soul, some would argue, that didn't matter at all. It went out the window. The standard I thought I had that I needed proved to be nothing. There was no foundational basis for it. So that's just for people to reflect upon. Some of the needs that you think you have aren't needs at all. And they're just things that are clouding your judgment and allowing you to not see reality. So yeah, to that, bringing that point full circle, yeah, you're never going to find anyone that meets all of your quote unquote initial desires. But desires are just like emotional experiences. They come and they go. And so the thing that you desire today may be different tomorrow. We have to look at the foundational bases. And if you can build a foundation, if you and your partner have a shared vision, you have a long-term 30 years from now, you want to be in the same place. You want to go and do these. You want to travel together. You want to do these things and just build up the foundational bases. Could be your person. But of course, there's so many other components that go along with that.
Man, you said a lot. It's a lot to unpack there. But before I jump into that, let me ask you this. So for anybody that is having insecurities, want to have open communication, want to be to better themselves, what would be the first piece of advice before all the tools and practices?
Before all the tools and practices?
Yeah.
You have to understand that it's going to be a very challenging journey, and you're going to have resistance to it even when you're integrating it. And, there's even times now still, these are things I'm still integrating. I'm doing the work every day too. There's not even necessarily a point where you've integrated everything. You're now the perfect, ideal person. I mean, you're not God. So there's plenty of times that I tell my girlfriend where, it's become easier to open up to her about things that I'm struggling with. But it's still exceptionally difficult for me. And so there's occasional times where I'm genuinely sitting and staring at the wall for 5 minutes straight. And she's, kind of just waiting for me to open up about what I'm experiencing. Right. And it's like, because I think about saying something, I know exactly what to say, but my mouth won't move. Right. And so these are insecurities that are still coming up, that are still within my experience. And then the integration process of it is what? Talking about it despite feeling that way, just talking about it despite having the fears, the insecurity come up. And that's the most important piece. Is you need to have a level of courage that 99% of individuals don't have and never will possess. You have to create yourself to be the 1%. And what that really means is going into it understanding that there's going to be a lot of anxiety that comes with it. A lot of people talk about the self-growth stuff, and it's like, oh, integrating these things and working on yourself, like it's all fun, and you just get to the point where it's the snowball effect and everything's positive. This is deeply challenging, and there's going to be so many trigger points that come up that make you feel horrible about yourself, and you're like, you're going to uncover parts of yourself that are so dark that you wish didn't exist, until you integrate them, and of course realize that these are an essential part of your life. And so, there's there's that light part of our nature, there's the dark part. It's incredibly important for a man, for example, to be able to be very caring and individual, and also have the capacity for intense destruction. And so this is where the nice guy comes into place, which is, well, I'm just going to do whatever. I'm going to buy her flowers. I'm going to do everything for her. And then I'm going to make her feel good. And there's no dark part of yourself that's being integrated. And what that means is really going down to the depths of what you desire and being able to show that, to express it, to talk about it, to integrate it. And a lot of us are too afraid to say what's actually on our mind, to do what we actually desire. And because it's, well, what if they judge us? And so we pretend that we're somebody that we're not to do those things. So of course it can only last so long until it blows up in your face. But the point of the destructive piece is that's actually in reality the most destructive piece. But you need the capacity. Like, look, you need the capacity to, let's say, be a caring individual most of the time. And if you needed to defend somebody you love and kill somebody, you can do that too, right? And so that's the part of ourselves that we don't ever want to let it out of the cage. So we don't nurture it. And this is something that I'm still integrating for myself. I kind of thought for a while now I want to start to get into martial arts a little bit more. I haven't really delved into it so much, and I've just been creating excuses for myself around it. And so you have to develop these parts of you in all these different capacities to bring everything full circle, to be able to do all these different things and nurture and feed that part of you that can lead to destruction, but you can use it for positivity and growth. It's like, okay, everyone wants to be physical. That's why men like conflict. That's why when you see a guy that's incredibly drunk, he doesn't want to fight you with his words. He wants to punch you in the face, because men are physical creatures. And so for women, it's a lot of like, let me talk behind her back and talk shit about her, right? But for men, it's like, if we have a problem, let's confront it. And if I have to fight you, I'm going to do it right here, right now. And the problem with that is a lot of men don't have this integrated. So they have that animal part of them that's very loose on a leash. And the second someone makes him angry, he's barking and he's trying to kill somebody. There's no purpose or productivity in that. But it's about having the potential to do that if it calls for it at the necessity of it, that you have the capacity to do so. But that being said, it's being able to bridge the gap between all of these different parts of ourselves and acknowledge that they're there. The nice guy doesn't acknowledge, just because I'm the kind of the theme of the podcast itself, it has me looping back to that, which is like, the nice guy doesn't have the capacity for anything. All he has the capacity to do is lie and manipulate. And this is, this is what destroys societies. This is what leads women to feel unfulfilled. And it's what leads to what we have now, which is most people getting divorced, most people having one or no parents. You got a single mother, single father, so on and so forth. And we're lost. And science proves time and time again, in order for the healthiest possible. Now, that being said, there's so many people who grow up with, let's say you only have a mom or dad, and you're like, oh, I turned out just fine. It's like, well, you got a lot of stuff that you have to integrate that you wouldn't have had to integrate if you had two people but here's the thing. It's not just people take these things at face value and it's a problem because they're like, oh, well, that means, I know my friend who has a mom and a dad and his life is still pretty messed up. It's like, well, it's not just taking a mom and a dad. It's an integrated mom and a dad to be able to raise your kids accordingly, positively, teach them things and have them actually understand these things, intellectualize them, experiment with them, soak into reality, develop the values to be able to actually reach that. And so that's what we don't really have anymore in society on a large part. And so that's what's leading to the destruction of, because that's what we don't understand, is how our relationship with our parents also infects our relationships romantically, friendship, the relationship with ourselves. And that's why in a lot of the work with my clients, what I'll notice is, you got a guy who had an abusive dad, had an abusive mom, verbally or otherwise, narcissistic, maybe even diagnosed with it. And then you notice, if you look at all their history of their romantic relationships, it seems like they're only in relationships with people that feed that narrative. The abusive mom, the one that was very overbearing, suddenly you're only getting into relationships with women that treat you badly. And, on the surface level, you'll say, well, I don't know why this is happening to me. Like, I don't want women like that. And you got to acknowledge that there's a dark part of you that does want that part of women, because that's all you know. That's all you've ever seen. That's what you think a woman is, per se. That's what you think and you also think that you need to feel your idea of love and experiencing it is through attention and what you perceive to be as care. And your only version of someone caring about me is them slapping me across the face, is them telling me I'm not worth it, is them telling me you have to do this list of 10 things in order for me to give you attention and love you, right? And so how does that create itself in your relationships? Your girlfriend withholds sex from you. She says, you don't have to do this for me. Oh, you got to buy me these things all the time, right? And then we'll just say, oh, she's just manipulative. It's like, well, what part of yourself actually likes this? What part of yourself is comfortable in this because you don't know anything else? I had one of my clients come to me one time who was hooking up with somebody that was married. And he's like, it's just, I know, I'm like, is that like what you deserve? Like, or do you want something more? Like, do you want to be with someone long term? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, what does like love mean? Like, do you soak into that? And he's like, I know what I deserve. I know what I want in someone. I said, no, you don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't be engaging in this type of behavior. Because I asked him, like, are you being granted the love that you desire based on hooking up with this person? He's like, no, of course not. Right. And so it's like, well, why are you engaging in the behavior that constantly takes you further and further away from the thing that you desire? Logically, it doesn't make sense. But of course, your emotions are attached to the whole experience. And there also usually is a deeper insecurity around it. Well, it gives me, especially specifically for men, and women are being infected by this more than ever now. They weren't really kind of, years ago, but it is now, is you gain this sort of power and significance, you think you do, from being able to sleep with more people, from being able to hook up with people, from getting access to people. And the reason as to why it's not powerful is because it really leaves a lot of baggage in your psyche. It leaves a lot of baggage emotionally. Specifically, if we're breaking it down science-based, it's more for women than it is for men, but it is for men as well. Because you kind of burn out your capacity to truly connect with somebody on a deep level on a sexual basis if you're constantly giving yourself access to everyone else. It's also usually, well, as a early teenager, as men, all of your friends are like, oh, like I got with this girl, so on and so forth. These are conversations that are constantly being had. So if you're not a part of that equation, you feel like you're not enough. You feel like you're missing out. I have a few friends who are in their early 20s, have never had sex before. The amount of shame that they experience is tragic, right?
Yeah.
And now, of course, on the surface level, whether you've had sex starting at 16 years old or you started having sex after you got married when you were 30, it makes no difference in reality. But because of the societal pressure, and again, I was having a conversation with two of my friends who have had sex before, and we were talking about those other guys, and they were like, it's like they don't understand, it's like it doesn't really matter that much. Like once you have your first few sexual experiences, like, all right, yeah, it's cool, whatever, right? But it's not everyone hypes it up to be, in terms of like, this is the gateway to the best reality possible. But of course they don't know that until they haven't experienced it. So they don't know that. So they just take everything at face value, which is, and also we're all constantly being deluded. Like it's being promoted to hook up with people. It's being promoted to not commit to people. And what this does is, of course, it destroys the family structure. It destroys the relationship with yourself and destroys your ability to form deep connections with people. And we romanticize this over and over and over again. And because we romanticize that, we no longer can romanticize the things that actually matter in healthy relationships. And it gets very toxic very quickly. And if you broke down the barriers to someone's inner part of their soul, of somebody who's severely, who's a chronic, I'm going to hook up with people, it's an addiction. You can never get enough. That's why you have to go from person to person, because you're not being satisfied. Oh, I'm happy with hooking up with people. Well, if you were happy, you wouldn't have to keep feeding that dragon. You wouldn't have to keep feeding yourself that, right? And so I think and of course, that's why relationships and monogamy is the ideal. It's difficult. Nobody's out here saying that just because you're in a healthy relationship, you don't find other human beings attractive. Nobody's out here saying that. You're contradicting reality if you believe that. But that's why it's the ideal, is because you get to reach for something greater than yourself. You get to reach for something that has long-term value. But most people don't see that anymore because what? They don't see it in their parents' relationship because they only have one parent, or they have no parents, or if they have two parents, they feel abandoned in their relationship with their parents. And so you have no foundational basis to have monogamy as an ideal for yourself. Yeah, why would I commit to one person when I saw my mom being cheated on all the time? And it's like, now you have a perception that all men are cheaters, or if it's vice versa, all women are cheaters, right? And now this is going to manifest itself in your relationships, and you're going to constantly attract people that are like that. And so that's kind of another piece is, when we are constantly attracting people that aren't right for us, we have to ask ourselves what part we have to play in it, because every single person that you let into your life is you letting them into your life. And if you were aware enough to actually know you don't deserve this type of person, you wouldn't be accepting them over and over again. You wouldn't keep having people sleep with you and then leave you the day after and never talk to you ever again. It wouldn't happen if you're connected to your values. The people that, and they're like, oh, well, it started off so good and then they started manipulating me. They started that from the beginning, right? It's like the telltale signs are always there. And one of my clients came to me the other day. He's like, oh, I just had rose-colored glasses. Like, I couldn't see it. I said, you saw it. We've been having conversations about this over and over again. You just chose not to accept the reality of it, right? And so it's like we have to acknowledge what part of ourselves we're neglecting. And once we soak into that a little bit more, healing the insecurities becomes a lot easier. Creating the life for yourself that you want actually becomes a lot easier. And attracting the partner that you want for yourself and building something real becomes a billion times easier.
No, Brad, I have realized you are a wealth of information.
I appreciate that.
Like this is a great conversation, and there's just so much to unpack here that we don't have the time in this show. And I know that the Farewell fans is gonna like all of this. So, Brad, one last piece of advice you have for the Farewell fans, just based on everything we said, one last piece of advice, just to kind of close it out for everybody.
Don't neglect any part of yourself. Everything that comes up is something that's worth giving your attention to and getting to the roots of why it's occurring in your life and realizing what part you have to play in aiding to the downfall of your life and not getting everything you've ever wanted, and really doing the deep reflection of how you're creating your life every single day based on your thoughts, based on your actions, your inaction, the reflections you're doing or not doing, the relationships you allow to stay in your life when they're not serving you, and feeding the dragons and feeding the dark parts of yourself, feeding the insecurities. Ask yourself, where am I feeding them? When I can start to withhold the food from them. And then what's going to happen when you withhold the food from your insecurity? It's going to get even angrier. And that's the time where it comes up enough, where you see the root, and then you can actually address it. So, next time you feel angry, upset, frustrated, lost, confused, neglected, confront it all the time, 100%. And you'll be on your way to creating the life for yourself that you deserve.
Well, Farewell fans, there you have it. Brad came and he dropped more gems than y'all can actually fit into y'all pouch. I'm telling you right now, it was a lot of gems in there. You gotta catch it all. You may have to rewatch the whole episode just to catch all them gems that was dropped. Brad, thank you again for coming on to the show. Thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Farewell fans, we will catch y'all in the next go around, next interview, next conversation. Peace.